Hey, everybody, and welcome back to Easy English Podcast. I'm Liam,
And I'm Zoe.
and it's great to be back with you for another deep dive into something interesting.
Yeah.
We know you want to improve your English,
Right?
and we're here to help you do just that.
Exactly. And remember, we talk slowly and clearly on this podcast so you can understand every word.
Yeah.
Learning English should be fun, not stressful.
That's right. You got it. So let's jump right in. You wrote in that you're thinking about your goals for the new year, which is awesome. Have you made any New Year's resolutions?
Well, you know me. I think every day is a chance to start something new. But there's definitely something special about a new year, right? It's like a fresh start, a clean slate.
Yeah, I totally agree. It's like opening a new book and you get to write the story. And that's what we're talking about today. New Year's resolutions. We're going to take a deep dive into why people make them and, more importantly, how to make them work for you. Because let's be honest, sometimes those resolutions disappear faster than a snowman in summer.
So true. We're all guilty of that sometimes, but don't worry, we're going to share some simple and effective tips to help you make those resolutions stick.
Okay, so before we get to the tips, I'm curious about something.
Okay.
This whole New Year's resolution thing. Where did it even come from?
Well, you know how much I love words. And the word resolution has a really fascinating history. It comes from an old Latin word resolvere, which means to loosen or to solve.
To loosen or to solve, huh?
Yeah.
So are we trying to untangle bad habits and find solutions to make ourselves better?
You got it. And get this. The idea of making resolutions on New Year's has been around for thousands of years. We're talking way back to the ancient Babylonians, like 4,000 years ago.
Wow, 4,000 years. That's older than my grandma's cookie recipe. What kind of resolutions did they make back then?
Well, they had these huge celebrations to honor their gods, and during these parties, they'd make promises, things like returning things they borrowed or paying back money they owed. Sound familiar?
It's like when we promise to clean our room or help with the dishes.
Exactly. And the Romans, they had their own New Year's traditions, too. They'd make promises to Janus, their god of beginnings and endings, like January.
Oh, so people have been making these promises for a really, really long time.
It seems like wanting a fresh start is something people have always done, no matter where or when they lived.
Yeah.
But we all know it's one thing to make a resolution, and another thing entirely to actually keep it.
That's the truth. I bet everyone listening has a story about a resolution that, well, maybe didn't go exactly as planned.
Right. But that's why we're here. We're going to look at some super practical tips for making resolutions that actually stick.
Okay.
Tips that anyone can follow.
Okay, so let's say I've got my notebook ready and I'm full of ideas for the new year. What's the first step to making a resolution that really works?
The most important thing is to be specific.
Okay.
Instead of saying something general like, I want to be healthier, think about what that really means for you. Do you want to eat more fruits and veggies? Exercise more? Get more sleep? What exactly do you want to change?
It's like choosing a place to go on a map, right?
Yeah.
You need to know exactly where you're headed.
Exactly. So instead of just saying be healthier, your resolution could be, I will walk for 20 minutes every day, or I will eat a salad 3 times a week.
Okay, that makes sense. Being specific is key. But what if I have a big goal? A really ambitious goal?
Having big goals is great. But that brings us to our next tip. Making sure your resolution is achievable.
So maybe I should start with something smaller before I try to climb Mount Everest.
It's great to have big dreams, but for a New Year's resolution, it's better to start with something you can actually do.
Right.
Remember, small steps can lead to big changes over time.
That's true. You don't run a marathon on your first day of training.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've got specific and achievable. What's next?
Next, make sure your resolution is measurable. This means you can track your progress.
Oh.
So instead of saying, I want to read more, you could say, I want to read 1 book each month.
I like that. It's like leveling up in a video game. You can actually see how far you've come.
Exactly. It's motivating to see those wins along the way. And speaking of motivation, our next tip is to make sure your resolution is relevant to you.
Relevant? You mean it should be something I actually care about?
Yes. It has to be something you want to do, not something you think you should do.
Right.
Or something someone else is doing.
So if all my friends are learning to play the guitar, but I'm really more of a drummer, I shouldn't force myself to learn guitar just because it's popular.
Exactly. You need to find something that excites you, something that you're genuinely interested in. That makes the whole journey so much more enjoyable.
Okay, I'm getting this. So far, we've got specific, achievable, measurable, and relevant. What's the next thing we need for a really strong resolution?
The next step is to make it time-bound.
Right.
This means setting a deadline for yourself.
Hmm?
It gives you a clear target to work towards and helps you stay
Oh,
focused.
instead of just saying, I want to learn some Spanish, I could say, I want to learn 50 basic Spanish phrases by the summer.
Perfect example. Having that deadline adds a little extra push to help you achieve your goal.
I can see how that would help.
Yep.
Okay, so we've got specific, achievable, measurable, relevant, and time-bound. Is there anything else we should keep in mind?
Yes. One more important tip. Break your resolution down into smaller steps.
That makes sense. Smaller pieces are easier to handle.
Right. It's much less overwhelming that way.
Hmm.
Instead of focusing on the whole big goal, think about the small actions you can take every day or every week to get there.
So if I want to write a short story, I shouldn't try to write the whole thing in one go. I should break it down into smaller goals, like writing 1 page a day.
Exactly. Smaller steps make the whole journey seem less scary and easier to manage. Plus, it makes it easier to see how you're progressing.
That reminds me of that saying, a journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step.
Very wise. And speaking of tracking your progress,
Yeah.
that's our next tip. Don't just make your resolution and then forget about it.
Right.
Make a plan to check in with yourself regularly and see how you're doing.
So I shouldn't just write down my resolution and hide it in a drawer somewhere.
Definitely not. Keep it somewhere you can see it, like on the fridge or your bathroom mirror.
Uh-huh.
You could also use a notebook or calendar to keep track of your progress. It's really motivating to see how far you've come.
It's like taking a road trip. You want to stop and enjoy the scenery along the way, not just rush to the destination.
Exactly. Celebrate those small wins. It keeps the journey fun and keeps you motivated to keep going.
Okay, we've covered a lot of ground here. Specific, achievable, measurable, relevant, time-bound, breaking it down into smaller steps, and tracking our progress. What's the last piece of advice for our listeners who are ready to rock their resolutions in 2025?
This is the most important tip of all. Be kind to yourself.
Be kind to yourself. That sounds important. What do you mean by that?
It's easy to get discouraged if we make a mistake or don't reach our goals exactly as planned. But remember, everyone makes mistakes. It's part of learning and growing.
That's true. I've probably made enough mistakes to fill a whole library.
We all have those moments. The important thing is to not let those setbacks stop us. Instead of giving up, let's learn from our mistakes and try again.
It's like learning to ride a bike. You're going to fall a few times, but you get back up and keep practicing until you can do it.
Exactly. It's all about progress, not perfection. And remember, achieving a resolution is a journey, not a race.
Yeah.
Be patient with yourself, celebrate your wins, and learn from the times you stumble. You've got this.
That's a great reminder. Be kind to ourselves, learn from our mistakes, and keep going. Now, with all these amazing tips in mind, let's look at some fun and simple New Year's resolution ideas to help our listeners get started.
Sounds great. We'll give you some examples to get your creative juices flowing.
Perfect. But first, you mentioned you wanted to learn more about how people in the past made resolutions.
Yeah.
I think our listeners would find that interesting, too. What can you tell us about how these traditions have evolved?
Well, that's where things get really fascinating. We've talked about the Babylonians and the Romans, but there are so many other cultures with their own unique New Year's traditions.
Like what? I'm all ears.
For example, in ancient China, the New Year was a time for cleaning and renewal. They would sweep their homes from top to bottom to get rid of bad luck and make space for good fortune in the coming year.
Oh, that's interesting. It's like a physical way of letting go of the past and starting fresh.
Exactly. And in many cultures, the New Year was also a time for feasting and celebrating with loved ones. It was a way to strengthen bonds and create positive energy for the year ahead.
I love that. So the idea of using the new year as a time for reflection, renewal, and setting intentions is something that connects people across different cultures and throughout history.
Right.
It's kind of amazing when you think about it.
It really is. It shows that the human desire for self-improvement and new beginnings is universal.
That's a great point. So while the specific ways we celebrate the new year might vary, the underlying motivations and aspirations are remarkably similar.
Exactly. And that brings us back to the resolutions we make for ourselves.
Yeah.
They're a reflection of our personal hopes and dreams for the future.
That's a beautiful way to put it. Our resolutions are a way to connect with that timeless human desire for growth and positive change.
Exactly. And whether it's improving our health, learning a new skill, or strengthening our relationships, those resolutions are a reminder that we have the power to shape our own lives.
I'm feeling really inspired now.
Me too.
But before we get too carried away, I think it's time to take a short break.
Okay.
When we come back, we'll be ready to dive into those fun and achievable resolution ideas to help our listeners kickstart their 2025 goals. Stay tuned.
Welcome back, everyone. Now that we've explored the why behind New Year's resolutions, let's dive into the how. We've got some great examples to get you started on your 2025 goals.
I'm ready. You mentioned I was interested in reading more classic literature this year. Do you have any tips for turning that into a resolution I can actually stick with?
Absolutely. Remember those SMART goals we talked about?
Yeah.
Specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. Let's apply those to your reading goal.
Okay, so instead of just saying you read more classics, I need to be more specific.
Exactly. How about read one Jane Austen novel by April? That's specific and time-bound, giving you a clear target.
I like that. It feels manageable, too. But why Jane Austen? I know she's famous, but I've never actually read any of her books.
That's a great question, and it leads us right into relevance. Why does her work still resonate with readers centuries later? What are you curious to discover about her writing?
Good point. I guess I'm curious about why people still find her stories so compelling after all this time.
Yeah.
What is it about her characters and themes that continue to connect with people today?
That's a fantastic starting point. And as you read, think about how Austen's observations about society and human nature might still be relevant to your own life and experiences. It's amazing how much we can learn from books written centuries ago.
That's so cool. It's like having a conversation with someone from the past.
Exactly. And speaking of conversations, let's move on to another resolution you mentioned, improving your conversational English.
Yeah.
What are some specific areas you'd like to work on?
Well, sometimes I feel like I hesitate a lot when I'm speaking.
Huh.
I want to be able to express myself more fluently and confidently.
That's a common goal for many English language learners, and there are definitely strategies we can use to make that happen.
Like what? Tell me everything.
One technique is to focus on building your vocabulary in specific areas that interest you.
Okay.
For example, if you love movies, you could make a resolution to learn 10 new words related to film each week.
Ooh, I like that. So instead of just learning random words, I could focus on words that I'll actually use in conversations about movies.
Right.
That would be super helpful.
Exactly. It's all about making your learning relevant to your interests. Another tip is to practice speaking as much as possible, even if it's just to yourself.
Wait, talk to myself? People might think I'm crazy.
No, not at all. It's a great way to get comfortable with the sounds and rhythms of English.
Right.
You can even record yourself and listen back to identify areas where you can improve.
That's actually a really good idea.
What?
I could practice talking about things I'm learning from the books I'm reading.
Uh-huh.
Maybe even try to use some of those new vocabulary words.
Exactly. You're getting it. And remember, don't be afraid to make mistakes.
Right.
That's how we learn and grow.
Speaking of growth, one of the things I'm excited about in the new year is trying new things.
Okay.
I've always wanted to learn how to cook some new dishes. Do you have any advice for making that into a delicious resolution?
Absolutely. This is a great example of a resolution that can be both fun and beneficial. What kind of cuisine are you interested in exploring?
I've always been fascinated by Italian food.
Yeah.
The flavors, the aromas, it's all so amazing. I'd love to learn how to make some classic Italian dishes from scratch.
That's a wonderful choice. Italian cuisine is rich in tradition and flavor, so how can we make this a SMART goal? Let's start with being specific.
Okay, so instead of just saying, learn to cook Italian food, maybe I could say something like, learn to make 3 classic Italian pasta dishes by the end of March.
Perfect. That's specific and time-bound. Now let's talk about making it achievable.
Okay.
Have you done much cooking before?
I dabble a bit in the kitchen, but I'm definitely more of a beginner when it comes to making anything fancy.
That's all right. Everyone starts somewhere. The key is to break down the goal into smaller, manageable steps. How about starting with 1 pasta dish per month? You can choose recipes that are beginner-friendly and gradually build your skills.
That sounds much less intimidating. I can definitely handle 1 new dish a month. What about making it measurable? How can I track my progress?
You could create a little cooking journal where you record the recipes, you try the ingredients you use, and any notes or observations you have along the way.
Oh.
It's a great way to document your culinary journey and see how much you're learning.
I love that idea. It's like a scrapbook for my taste buds.
And don't forget to take pictures of your creations.
Yeah.
You can share them with friends and family and even post them online.
That would be fun. I can already imagine myself proudly presenting a plate of homemade pasta to my friends.
See, resolutions can be enjoyable and rewarding.
Yeah.
And who knows, maybe by the end of the year, you'll be hosting your own Italian dinner parties.
Now you're talking. That would be amazing. But before I get too carried away with my culinary dreams, I think we should take a break and give our listeners a chance to digest all this great information.
Okay.
We'll be right back with more resolution inspiration. We're back, and I don't know about you,
Yeah.
but I'm feeling really inspired after talking about all these awesome resolution ideas.
Me too. It's so exciting to think about all the possibilities a new year brings.
It really is. But, we've talked a lot about what resolutions are and how to make them work.
Uh-huh.
But I think it's also important to remember why we make them in the first place.
That's a great point. It's easy to get caught up in the excitement of setting goals.
Yeah.
But taking a moment to reflect on the deeper meaning behind them can make them even more powerful.
So why do you think people make New Year's resolutions? What's the driving force behind this tradition that's been around for centuries?
Well, I think it's a natural human impulse to want to improve ourselves, to strive for something better. A new year symbolizes a fresh start, a chance to leave behind old habits and embrace new possibilities.
It's like hitting the reset button, isn't it?
Yeah.
Kind of like clearing out your closet and getting rid of all the clothes you never wear anymore.
Yeah.
You create space for something new and exciting.
I love that analogy. It's about letting go of what no longer serves us and making room for growth and positive change. And, this idea of renewal is something we see in so many cultures around the world, not just on New Year's.
That's true. We talked about the ancient Chinese tradition of cleaning their homes to sweep away bad luck and welcome good fortune. And in many cultures, spring is a time for celebrating new life and new beginnings.
Exactly. It seems like this desire for renewal and self-improvement is something that's deeply ingrained in us as humans.
It's fascinating, isn't it?
Yeah.
No matter where we come from or what language we speak, we all share this common desire to grow and become better versions of ourselves.
Absolutely. And that's what makes New Year's resolutions so special. They're a way for us to connect with that universal desire and make a conscious commitment to our own personal growth.
So even if we don't achieve every single goal we set,
Uh-huh.
the very act of setting those intentions and working towards them is a valuable experience in itself.
Absolutely. The journey is just as important as the destination, and even small steps in the right direction can have a big impact on our lives.
That's so encouraging. So as we wrap up our deep dive into New Year's resolutions, what's the most important message you want our listeners to take away?
I think the key is to approach your resolutions with a sense of kindness, curiosity, and excitement. Don't view them as a chore or a burden, but as an opportunity to create positive change in your life, one step at a time. Remember, it's all about progress, not perfection.
That's a beautiful thought. So to all our listeners out there, we encourage you to embrace the spirit of new beginnings and set some meaningful goals for yourselves in 2025. And remember, we're here to support you every step of the way.
We'd love to hear about your resolutions, so feel free to share them with us in the comments or on social media.
Yeah,
Let's make 2025 our best year yet.
absolutely. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into New Year's resolutions. We'll be back next week with another fascinating topic to help you learn and grow. Until then, keep practicing your English, keep exploring new ideas, and keep having fun.
Bye, everyone. Happy New Year.